right. Hey, I'm Dex Williams, and I wanted to make this video as I just finished the first exercise that Mikhail had us do, the position validation test, to actually determine which niches would be, or which niche would be the most appropriate for me to enter. And the reason I wanted to make this video is because the results that I got were actually quite unexpected. And I wanted to share what I discovered just so that you, one, don't make the same mistake that I initially made, and two, to give you an idea of how you might be able to look outside of the box that you're currently operating in to possibly get even better results than you're getting for cheaper, ideally. So let's get started. The position validation test. So the first thing that I should mention is the constants that I kept constant in the campaigns. So the things that I kept constant the entire time was that the budget for each day was $5 per day, up to a maximum of $20, which was roughly the concept of the exercise. And then for each campaign that I picked, I targeted USA, Canada, Australia, and United Kingdom, the four primarily English-speaking countries, to make sure that, one, the audience that I targeted was large enough at a global scale to get really accurate feedback in terms of response to the position statement, and two, to make sure that I wasn't targeting countries where there would be a language barrier which could impact the results. Once again, I made sure all the speakers were English, and for the age range of the campaigns, I picked between the ages of 25 to 55. Could have gone older? Sure, but I wanted to have a finite range as opposed to the 65 plus option at the end of the scale. And I'll talk about that later on as well. And also, I only targeted the Facebook news feed. I did not target Instagram at all, and I'll talk about that later on. So the first niche that I picked was aesthetic medicine. So this is businesses that deal with lip fillers and Botox and lasering and cool sculpting and fat reduction. You're seeing this industry booming right now. There's medical spas or medi spas coming on board, it seems, every day, especially where I am here in Alberta, Canada. But across the world, it's an industry that's picked up, especially as it's become more acceptable to get cosmetic treatments done. So I wanted to see if I could tap into that niche, and it's a niche that I've been trying to get a foothold in for quite some time. I actually started trying to approach it last year, and I've had a couple approaches and interviews with people in that market, but I really haven't been able to crack it because it's been seemingly so expensive. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't completely missing the mark. So I wanted to do that for one of these tests. So as you can see, for this one, you can see an example of the ad I used on the side. I used essentially the same wording that Ben had used in his example, stating, are you an esthetician? You've spent hundreds of hours improving your skills in order to deliver incredible results, but attracting new clients on a regular basis and increasing your sales each month still presents a challenge. Okay? So the impressions off this campaign was over 1,000. I generated 5 leads at a cost of $3.91 per lead. Now, interestingly enough, and this was the first point I wanted to bring up, I had initially provided some results after 2 days of testing, roughly after about $10 worth of spend. And at that time, the cost per lead was, I think, like $6.50 or much higher. And I thought, that's insane. This niche is impossible. It's way too expensive. But lo and behold, I let it go for 2 more days, pretty much the full 4 days, spend roughly $20, and the cost per lead actually came down. So the first thing I wanted to note was make sure that you aren't judging the winning or losing of a campaign, the success of it, too soon. Let it play out. Make sure the cost average and the results are accurate and that you're not predicting something too soon. So needless to say, $3.91 per lead, and it generated roughly 21 link clicks on that ad. So roughly 5 out of the 21 who saw and clicked that link actually submitted their information. So about 25% conversion. So it's not too bad. And even that cost per lead, you're talking about an industry where the average treatment is roughly $400, $500, and they have got some significant lifetime value on the clients that they generate. So if I was able to generate a lead at $391 and convert them into, say, a $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 consulting package, it's probably worth it, right? But needless to say, cost per link click through is right there. Outbound links. So the outbound links, that's on that final page of the form. And on that, I actually just made an offer for a free video series that I had created if they were interested. And as you can see, of the 5 leads that submitted their information, 4 of them proceeded on to actually look into that video sales course. Now, I should say none of them actually opted in. So they saw it, they didn't take action. I don't know, maybe I'll have to take a look at why that was, but that's pretty good. They basically said, hey, I was still interested in learning more, and they took action. In terms of how I targeted this niche, I targeted them by job title. So anybody who had esthetician with an A or esthetician starting with an E, or had an interest in aesthetic medicine was the target group that I went after for their interests, using the same campaign constants that I mentioned in the previous slide. That resulted in a potential reach of roughly 600,000 people. So as you can see, it was a highly targeted audience based on their literal job being exactly this. So $391, okay. I then decided, hey, what about the yoga niche? Right? So similar idea, how can I help them improve their sales, generate more customers? You can see here I used an ad that had an image of someone doing yoga to help resonate and capture the attention of anybody who was interested in that niche. And I called them out right off the hop. I said, are you a yoga instructor? Well, if you're not a yoga instructor, this ad will be irrelevant to you. But clearly, if you are a yoga instructor, I've got your attention. So on this ad, the impressions were 1,200, generated 6 leads at a cost of $2.93 per lead, and it generated 13 link clicks. So of the 13 link clicks, 6 actually submitted their information. So roughly half, just over half, much better conversion rate than the quarter that took action or converted with the aesthetic market. And at the end of it, out of the outbound leads, 2 of them proceeded on to learn more about the video series that I created. So is it the end of the world? Not really. They may not have had an interest in a video series at that time. I don't know. But the cost per lead is lower. Now, that being said, the yoga market, the average person is paying like $20, $30 per class, maybe $200 per month. So it's a much lower cost per person than, say, the aesthetic market, possibly, depending if these are very long time members or if they're kind of flash in the pan members. But something to keep in mind. Now, who I targeted on this ad was anybody who had an interest in the Yoga Alliance. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what's the Yoga Alliance? And I'll touch on that on a second. But the reason why I put that is because initially I had trouble finding yoga instructor as an interest. And I thought, well, I could target people who like yoga, but it might not be the most accurate or most the best way to target that specific group of yoga instructors, because there's a lot of people who like yoga and who aren't yoga instructors. I did contemplate targeting people who like yoga and owned a business or were business owners, but once again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be yoga instructors. It could just mean that they're business owners who like yoga. So I thought, you know what, screw it, let's target the Yoga Alliance, which actually still generated a potential reach of 810,000. And the Yoga Alliance, just so that you can see, is a community specifically for people who are yoga instructors or who are looking to build their yoga school. So that is entirely targeted. That is super hyper targeted. So as you can see, all of the leads that came in from that clearly have an interest in either being a yoga instructor or having a yoga school, on top of my call out, the call for attention that I had at the start of that ad. Not too bad. The third niche, I wanted to do something that was completely different from the make money market. So I was thinking to myself, well, what could I do? Now, I was thinking of possible interests that I've wanted to explore. I recently really got into investing, so I thought maybe I could do something around investing, but I'm really not that confident on my investing skills. And realistically, if you're going to pay money to someone to teach you about investing, it's going to be someone who's already made millions of dollars in the investment market, not someone who's just getting started, right? I also have a passion for nutrition and working out, but I'm also not that six pack ab Dexx fit on Instagram or whatever. So I really don't have that proof around me to say, hey, you should listen to me for nutrition advice or working out advice. Except I don't have a six-pack ab, I've never been on the cover of a fitness magazine, etc. So despite having an interest in those things, I really decided that's probably not the best category to go into for me. Now, one thing that I often get approached for, or have friends call me for advice, is actually on relationships. Whether they're struggling with relationships or they're having some sort of challenge. So I said, okay, well, you know what? Let's look at the relationship niche. But let's go a bit further. There's already a lot of people in the dating niche, right? How to attract a male, how to attract a husband, how to attract a wife, how to keep your marriage happy. So I wanted to enter a niche that wasn't, not necessarily overly competitive, but something different. So I actually went into the post-relationship niche. I wanted to help people who recently got out of a marriage or currently are going through separation. So not even just a high school breakup or a college breakup or someone you've just been having a fling with. I want to target people who specifically just broke up out of a significant relationship, a long-term relationship. So as you can see here, targeting divorced women specifically, targeting people who had a relationship status of divorced or separated, that had a potential reach of 930,000. And as you can see, there was a total of 1,788 impressions. Really, the impressions were through the roof. I generated 21 leads at a cost per lead of 95 cents, and there was 33 link clicks. So about 63% link click to lead conversion. That's pretty good, in my opinion. You can see that the cost per link click was 60 cents, and fast forward, the outbound link clicks was 14. That's the highest of that whole group. Of the 21 people who actually submitted their information, 14 proceeded to follow up and say, I want to learn more. Now, you could argue that with the aesthetic one, they had a great overall number, but it was a smaller amount of leads. So for 14 of 21 to click through, that's pretty good, especially when you look at what I said. Click here for a few heartbreak tips. And all it did was send them to a wiki page that, like a blog article that just had some tips for what to do post breakup. 14 people still clicked on that. So to me, that's a really hyper passionate market, right? They're just saying, what tips do you got? I need anything. So that was really cool. Now, you might be thinking, and what I was thinking at that time, I was like, okay, well, the aesthetic market was $3.91 per lead. Off really great profit margins, really great potential, but it's really costly. And the dating market, well, that post-relationship market, much more affordable. How do you compete $3.91 to 95 cents? By wanting to try one thing. I wanted to try to target that same niche, but targeting the job titles of the nurses that work in there. So I was going after the estheticians because it's the aesthetics market. But then I was like, a lot of people are going after them. How else can I reach that exact same market the same way? Turns out the people who are, providing the Botox injections, the lip injections, all those medical procedures are typically nurses. So I said, well, let's target licensed practical nurses, nurse practitioners, and registered nurses. But I needed to also take it another layer. I wanted to make sure I wasn't targeting people working in, the pediatrics or working in, or orthotics or heart care or, burn ward. So I wanted to also add another layer for the interests of dermatology and laser and skincare, which meant all of the nurses being targeted also needed to have an interest in skincare. And my logic was if they did that, most likely they would also be the exact same people I needed to target for aesthetics. And it seemed I was right. Of the 663 impressions it generated, it resulted in 7 leads at a cost of $1.43 per lead. That's like a cut and a half, right? So the second point I mentioned earlier was if you're getting pretty good results from one of your niches, make sure you don't just leave it at that, that you test other ways of reaching those same people in that niche. Most likely what's happening is to target the keywords that I was looking or to target the interests that I was looking at before. There's probably so many people bidding on that, whether maybe it's the Botox companies themselves or the cosmetic companies themselves trying to also target them, but it basically ballooned the bidding cost. So by finding another way to target the same people, I actually got my cost per lead down, got 18 link clicks, and I still got pretty decent. I got 55-cent cost per link click, right? So the result was much, much better. But that got me thinking, okay, well, if trying a different way to get at the aesthetic niche worked, what if I tried a different way of getting at the relationship niche? So I tried something that actually was really different, and that was as a result of the nurse thing shocking me. So I went after divorced men. I was curious, if women resulted in such great response at such a low cost per lead, what would the male counterparts end up being like? So same thing, relationship status of divorced or separated, potential reach of 740,000 led to, out of 662 impressions, 13 leads at a cost per lead of 41 cents. That's less than half, right, of what it was costing to reach the divorced women at 95 cents at cost per lead. Got 19 link clicks, and the outbound clicks also great, right? The outbound clicks actually had 1.05% as opposed to the 0.80% that the divorced women generated. So we are talking about a very passionate niche here. Now, I will say I did have one concern with this market, and this is a prime example. As you can see, that one of the comments on this ad was basically a guy talking about how he got a restraining order filed against him by his ex for 4 years, no contact, must stay 100 yards away from her and her family. So he's currently paying for love spells to get her back, and he's currently in the process of paying for a 9th love spell this Friday because he wants her back so badly. So that was kind of cringeworthy for me. It got me thinking, well, am I going to be dealing with a lot of people who've got stalker-esque like tendencies, or just people who just don't know where to quit? But as much as that's a concern, on the flip side, there is a lot of people who are hurting currently, who've gone through a divorce or are currently going through separation, who need some sort of advice, some sort of help to get through. And I know that there's a ton of free information online, and there's tons of free information online about every niche. But what I did notice was that there wasn't a lot of people who were willing to kind of walk them through a process. Now, disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychotherapist, I don't know any therapy type stuff. But what I do have is empathy and a willingness to learn. So what I'm thinking is, based off of the worksheet that we were given, and I look at it, and it's kind of like, your dream customer. What is their criteria? What are they passionate about? How big is the niche? Did you niche down? Awesome. What is their core desires? Feel more confident, not be crying themselves to sleep every night, not feel lonely, not feel discarded, rejected. Those are their core pains as well as their core desires, finding love. And when I think about that day in the life, it's a lot easier for me to imagine what the day in the life is for someone who's going through a divorce or separation than it is for me to go through a day in the life of someone who's running an aesthetic business. Now, that's not to say it's that I can't figure that out, what it's like, the outstanding debts, the cost for payroll, the outstanding debts for leasing equipment. I have a rough idea about that stuff. Or talking about the yoga studio and the challenges that they face. But I think it's going to be a lot easier to do the market research to nail down the actual words, and especially the emotional state for a lot of these people. Once again, the emotional state of a business owner, probably stressed, overworked, tired, maybe possibly feeling lonely. So, I could go either way. What I think I will do is actually for the leads that I have generated for the yoga business and for the aesthetic businesses, because I do already have a background in providing, business growth systems and marketing strategies to business owners, I think what I'll do is I will do a test run. I will reach out to those leads personally without, automation, just literally send them an email and say, hey, you showed interest in this offer and you're looking to help your business. Here's, 45 minutes, 60-minute breakthrough session that I will host with you, and we'll actually walk you through the steps needed to get you to where you want to go. I'll see what the response is like to that, and I know we haven't covered the MVO, the minimum viable offers yet, but maybe I'll just make them an offer, a $2,000 consulting package for 6 weeks, right? And I'll see who takes that. And of the 17 or 20 leads that have come through, if I get half or 5 or 2 or 1, and it generates $2,000, that's a win, right? Especially if I'm generating a $2,000 client off of several less than $40 in ad spend. That's pretty good ROI. Because on the flip side, if I was to enter the relationship niche, and that's something I will consider based on the response I get from these business owners. The relationship niche, maybe I could generate, a $600 client doing some sort of a relationship advice process for them over 6 weeks, or maybe $1,000 or $2,000. I don't know. I haven't gone down that path yet, and there's a lot to learn. So what I do know is I already know business marketing. So I'm going to try and reach out to the current business owners, see how that goes. If it doesn't go well, I'll move on to relationships, and then I got a whole bunch of learning and studying to do. But guess what? I had to learn and study to learn business marketing as well. It's part of the fun, and at least I can apply it to the relationship niche moving forward. So future test elements based on these results, I might do tests of genders for the other niches. I might do tests of age, the 25 to 35, 35 to 45, 45 to 55, right? See what the response is like based on the age groups. Mobile versus desktop, Instagram versus Facebook newsfeed, and also the countries that I targeted. I actually got a lot of responses from the UK for the divorced women leads. So that was very interesting. So I'll have to look into that. So key takeaways from this, make sure that you always allow for a suitable amount of impressions, probably 500 to 1,000 impressions at least, before you make that call and decide whether a campaign is a winner or a loser, despite the initial panic you might have over cost per lead like I had with the aesthetic market. Think outside the box for how you can access the same group without bidding on the same expensive keywords as everyone else. The other markets, even if they aren't direct competitors for you, there may be other people. I know there's other people targeting the yoga niche. Could be Lululemon, other sweatpants people, diet people, nutrition, fitness, right? So the keywords, the interests that you target, if they're the most popular, the obvious ones, they're going to be very expensive. So find other ways to reach that market without using those keywords, and you probably will cut your cost per lead drastically. And once again, don't necessarily focus on the make money niches. I know I've always had a passion for business marketing, so that's where I gravitate towards, but I see a lot of opportunity in the relationship niche, especially when it comes to helping people going through that heartbreak, because now that could possibly expand into helping parents with children who are going through divorce. When it comes to getting back into the dating market, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of potential there. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll explore. Hopefully I'll keep you guys posted. And thanks for watching. If you liked this, please leave a comment. This is the first time I've ever done this for a course, but I believe in Funalytics and I believe in what Mikhail and his team is doing. And Ben inspired me with his sharing of his video, which was an amazing contribution. So I'm glad if this was beneficial to at least one of you. And in the meantime, good luck, kick butt, and I look forward to seeing your success stories and your videos as we move forward. Take care.